Здравствуйте, меня зовут София Андрианова. Limited space. 1 second there was a field of wildflowers, butterflies, and birds chirping, and the next there was nothing. Nothing at all. Dead silence, dead flowers, the smell of something rotting in the distance, and the silence, the deafening silence. Mr. Birmingham closes the book. Everyone in the classroom has heard this excerpt a million times, but every time, as if rehearsed, everyone sits in utter silence as if mimicking the excerpt's final sentence. And that, students, is the last record on the surface of the earth. This exact day, over 1,000 years ago, our ancestors have failed us to preserve the earth and its resources, and this is what caused the climate crisis and the end of life on earth. The room remains silent. I understand that you guys are sick of hearing about this every year, but you have got to realize the importance. This bunker we are in is all we have left. If you grow up not realizing the effects of overconsumption, history will repeat itself. But this time, there won't be anywhere to run. So complain all you want, but you will be the one suffering the consequences. Mr. Birmingham explains, dropping the book down on his desk. With that, the class continues. Back at the rations hall an hour later, the bustling student life continues. Luna and her two best friends stand at the back of the line, waiting their turn for their food rations, laughing and giggling as usual. I won't tolerate another beans and rice meal. I would rather starve, Luna groans. Better than canned tomato soup with lentils. Cedar grins, putting his arm around Luna. Kellen rolls his eyes. Get a room, you guys. Cedar laughs. You know we only have a week left together, but before I turn 18 and get redirected. Enjoy my wonderful presence before I disappear into the void. You can get rid of us that easily. I'm sure we'll see you around in a janitor's outfit. Callan cackles before dodging a fake punch from Cedar. Shut up, I've already decided I'm going to be the next headmaster. Luna laughs. Yeah, right, too bad it's not your choice. Hey, you're supposed to be on my side. I am, I'm just stating the facts. Everybody knows that once you turn 18, you get assigned a job somewhere in this bunker, and unfortunately, it's not up to you. You forgot to mention the 10% of students that don't get assigned a job and just disappear from the face of the earth, or as Cedar likes to call it, the void. Wow, thanks for the kind reminder, Callan. I'm sure Cedar is so excited for his birthday evaluation now, Luna says, giving Callan a push and crossing her arms. Cedar's smile fades, his eyes looking down at the ground. Hey, I was just joking. Cedar, you're absolutely destined to be the next diaper changer. Cedar forces a grin and says, Come on, guys, let's just get our food and worry about this later. The group attempts to change the subject, despite the looming feeling of impending doom, knowing Cedar's 18th birthday is fast approaching. Despite the trio's attempts at trying to salvage every last moment they have together, the week flies by fast, and it is suddenly the day before Cedar's evaluation. Cedar and Luna hide in the janitor's closet to spend some final time alone. I can't believe today's your last day, Luna says, putting her head down on Cedar's shoulder. I'm going to miss you so much. You have to promise to visit me. Cedar laughs. You know that's not possible, Luna. Cedar's smile vanishes from his face and he looks away. Don't be scared, Cedar. I'm sure you'll simply become another educator or a ration distributor. There's no reason for them to cut you. It's not like we know the reason people get cut, Cedar comments with a sense of dullness in his voice. Well, you know what they say, it's not really cutting. They just go somewhere else. That's a synonym for death, Luna. They kill them. If they were to let everybody stay, the bunker would get overcrowded and history would repeat itself. You know this, Luna, don't deny it. Cedar states with an expression of anger and horror on his face. Luna stares into his eyes in silence. They sit there looking at each other, the air thick with fear and anticipation. Cedar looks over at Luna, whose eyes are glossy with tears. Cedar's facial expression shifts as he realizes what he has done. No, I'm sorry, Luna. I didn't mean to make you cry. Come here. He pulls her in and hugs her tightly. I'll be back. I promise. I'll find a way. And with that, the next day approached quickly. Cedar is called to the headmaster's office over the intercom. Luna and Callan follow him into the office to support their best friend despite the outcome. After all, this could be their last goodbye. As soon as everyone is in the room, the air becomes thick with tension. Cedar is fidgeting and looking directly at the headmaster, waiting for further instructions. There you are, Cedar. Please come up to the front of the room and face your peers. Everybody else, come take a seat by the door. Our evaluation will begin shortly. And with that, the headmaster walks away into the room next door. There is faint conversation heard in the neighboring room. The trio, however, is too afraid to speak. Callan gives Cedar a big thumbs up in response to Cedar's genuine expression of horror on his face. He quickly snaps out of it when he sees Callan's attempt at cheering him up and gives him a thumbs up back. The headmaster slowly opens the door and walks in with a tall woman following behind him. This is Mrs. Stevens. She will be accompanying us during our evaluation today, Cedar. Cedar nods quickly, as if trying to speed up the process. time seemed to be going by so slowly. He could hear the clock on the wall ticking, his heart beating. Every second filled Cedar with more and more anticipation. The headmaster finally speaks. I would just like to say, no matter what happens, you are in good hands, Cedar. All right, Mrs. Stevens, please begin the evaluation. Will do, sir. All right, Cedar, I'm going to need you to respond to a couple questions. Please answer truthfully. After that, we will proceed to do a medical examination. Let's begin. Have you found it difficult to live in our institution? Not at all, ma'am. Have there been any issues in any areas of study? No, ma'am. Any trouble with communicating with your peers? No, ma'am. Would you say you are an open-minded person? No. Excuse me? Would you say you are an open-minded person? Mrs. Stevens repeats the question. Cedar is silent. This question couldn't possibly be relevant to the evaluation. This seems like a question of personal character, not a question of his experience in the institution. Cedar didn't know what to say. He has never really thought about himself as an individual. His only plan was to answer questions in the way that would keep him safe inside the walls of the bunker. Cedar, I need you to answer the question. Yes, ma'am, I believe I'm an open-minded person. All right, then I have no further questions. All the rest of the information is already contained in your file. Now, would you please step out of the room so I can complete the medical examination? Cedar follows Mrs. Stevens out of the room. The office remains silent until their return. When Mrs. Stevens finally walks back into the room a few minutes later, she looks quite serious. Maybe it's her lean, tall figure that was so ominous, or potentially the way her glasses frame her sharp-edged face. She seemed to be 50 years old and probably accustomed to the job. There is not a single sign of sympathy on her face. Your evaluation has been completed, Cedar. Are you ready for me to state your results? Yes, ma'am, Cedar faintly replies. Mrs. Stevens pauses, looking down at the paperwork. After some time, she finally says, It looks like you will not be further needed in our institution. There is a moment of silence. I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm not sure I understand, Cedar says, slightly grinning as he turns to look at Mrs. Stevens, as if expecting her to say something that will be of comfort. But she looks just as strict as before. Not a hint of humor on her face. Cedar turns pale at the realization. Mrs. Stevens continues to stand in the same position as she was before, still with lack of expression, waiting for Cedar to process the information. She waits about a minute or so before clearing her throat. You have approximately an hour before we must be on our way. I will meet you back here in an hour. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Luna abruptly stands up and grabs Cedar by the shoulders and walks him out of the room. Thank you, Mrs. Stevens. We will make sure he's back in an hour. She yells out before running off with Cedar and Colin to their dorm. It was like something had possessed her. She was running, high on energy, almost fearless, as if she hadn't just witnessed the finalization of her and Cedar's friendship. Maybe she hasn't processed it. Maybe she had anticipated it. But it didn't matter, because now they only had an hour. Once they were in the room, Luna quickly sits Cedar down on the bed. She gives him a good shake on the shoulders before saying, Hey, Cedar, you're okay. Look, we're all here. Everything's okay. What happens next doesn't matter right now. Colin stands in the doorway with a forced grin on his face. Cedar unfreezes and speaks. I can't believe this is actually happening. I mean, I fully expect that it could happen to me, but now that it's real, I'm not ready. I know, Luna says, rubbing his back gently. Just try to stay calm, okay? Panicking won't make this any easier. Yeah, let me just stay calm while I process the fact that I will never see you guys again, or the fact that I'll be a lifeless body somewhere in the basement of this cursed bunker, Cedar says, looking at the ground. Death isn't that bad if you think about it. For example, you'll never have to eat canned beans ever again, and at least you won't have to clean bathrooms for the rest of your life if you were to be assigned a janitor's job. Look at that silver lining, Colin says, his arms outstretched as if presenting a whole world of new possibilities. No, guys, I still refuse to believe that Headmaster literally kills people to prevent the population from growing. That is so morbid. You don't have to believe it for it to be true, Cedar replies. What happens, happens. Let's just enjoy our last hour together. And with that, the group spends the next hour recalling their childhood and the years they have spent together. They laugh and cry, and by the end of it, it felt almost as if all of them got closure for this parting. After all, this is inevitable. Luna is next. Soon enough, within another month, she would have her fate decided, and she was okay with that now. After their final goodbyes and hugs, Cedar leaves with Mrs. Stevens. Luna and Callan watch as he walks with her up the stairs and disappears into the distance. The month after Cedar's disappearance flew by quickly. Luna and Callan spent most days together, holding on to what was left and enjoyed their few weeks. Finally, the day of Luna's evaluation arrives, and she is called to the headmaster's office. Whatever's about to happen to her, she is now okay with it. Of course, there was a sense of anticipation and tension in the room regardless, but she's no longer afraid of being exiled from the bunker. After seeing Cedar accept his faith, she's looking forward to joining him, as morbid as that may sound. So when Mrs. Stevens informed Luna that she is no longer needed in the institution, she slightly smiles and nods. She's given an hour, just like Cedar was, and her and Callan walk back to their room once more. This is really happening, Callan says, looking at Luna. Luna simply nods. Look, I know it's scary to do this all over again, Callan begins, but Luna interrupts him. No, don't say that. It's not scary. You saw the way Cedar handled it, didn't you? It's not scary, that's just what our world is like. It's time we accept it and stop fighting it. Callan's jaw drops as he stares at Luna. She has been acting this way for weeks now, and while he's glad that she's at peace with the whole situation, it is almost as if Luna had completely lost hope. She doesn't want to put up a fight. She doesn't want to deny the fact that Cedar could be dead. She doesn't want to do anything about all of this. And if Callan only knows one thing, it's that Luna has always been a fighter. He suddenly turns to her and embraces her. Callan, what's wrong? She asks. I just don't want you to lose the sparkle in your eyes. Even if when you're in the end, you can't give up. You were right, it's not death. There isn't death outside of the institution. Please tell me you don't believe that it's over from here, Callan says, hugging her tighter. Callan, Luna attempts to reply, but Callan only hugs her tighter. When he finally lets go, he holds her by the shoulders and stares directly into her eyes. Please tell me you don't believe them, he says again. Luna slowly nods. Of course I don't believe them, Callan, don't worry. She gives him a big grin. She doesn't want to disappoint him in their last moments together. After all, he has to face an evaluation all alone this year. Callan nods and hugs her again. You should probably get going though. It's almost time, he says, finally letting go of her. They get up and Luna walks out the door, where Mrs. Stevens is waiting for her. They walk down the hall and up the stairs. Luna looks back, gives Callan a final wave, and off she goes. Luna expected the stairs up into the void to be less steep. But after about 5 minutes of going up the stairs, she starts to wonder if this is the actual torture rather than some deadly pit she expected to be thrown into. However, Mrs. Stevens is still walking with her, same expression as always. After about 5 more minutes, they finally reach the top. Luna takes a deep breath at the top and looks over at Mrs. Stevens, who gives her a nod, urging her to go on. Luna turns around and slowly opens the door in front of her. A bright light shines through the crack. Fear overwhelms her and she pushes the door open as quickly as possible, squinting her eyes and taking a few steps back. After a couple seconds, she opens her eyes. She cannot believe what she is seeing. It was a field of grass, just like in the books. There was direct sunlight and flowers and noises. There was loud chirping and the sound of the wind. This is what death looks like? Luna doesn't mind it at all. In the distance, she sees some sort of glass building. She starts walking towards it, and as soon as she steps through the door closes shut. She tries twisting the knob, but nothing happens. It is now locked. Luna realizes she has nothing else to do but to walk towards the glass building in the distance. So, she does. Once she gets there, she knocks on the door and a group of people opens it. Oh, this must be the new girl. Nice to meet you, one of them explains. Aw, poor thing, she must be so confused. Here, let me explain. We're the repopulation group that has been released here to slowly start repopulating the Earth, since it's had enough time to heal while we all live in the bunker. They only allow certain people here, so consider yourself special, a tall woman says to Luna. All of that learning you've been doing in the bunker will come to use now. We must remember to conserve our resources. This is our second chance. Luna nods and looks around at all the people greeting her. She walks in through the doorway and begins looking around, but the only thing that catches her eye isn't the bunk beds or the sun-powered lamps. It's someone she never expected to see again. Pleasure seeing you here, madam, Cedar says, bowing forward and pretending to tip his imaginary hat. Cedar! Luna runs towards him and embraces him, happy tears rolling down her face. I can't believe this is happening. Cedar holds her close and whispers, I knew we would have a second chance, Luna, you and I. But to say I predicted life on Earth to be given a second chance, that would be a lie. He lets go of her. Can you believe this? Cedar stretches out his arm in the direction of the window. The grass is even greener than in the books. There are real butterflies. The Earth has given us a second chance, and I can't wait to see what we make of it. Cedar cries out, and everybody in the room cheers. Спасибо за внимание.